Shimon Prokopez, thank you for that. Joining us now live in studio, our panel, Fabian Núñez, a steering committee member for the Save America movement, the former Democratic speaker for the California State Assembly. We're also joined by Matt Klink, Republican strategist and owner and president of Klink Campaigns, Inc. Welcome to you both for the first time here on The Story. It's great to have you both.
Thank you. Great to be here, Alex.
Let's talk about the issue of immigration and this question that some have been asking. Do you need to have proof of citizenship now in America to be on the streets? It's something that Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, was asked about today. Here's what she said.
Why are we seeing Americans being asked on the street to provide proof of citizenship in Minnesota? Is that targeted enforcement? And are you advising Americans to carry proof of citizenship?
In every situation, we're doing targeted enforcement. If we are on a target and doing an operation, there may be individuals surrounding that criminal that we may be asking who they are and why they're there and having them validate their identity.
What do you make of that?
Well, the first thing is there's no such thing as targeted enforcement. I think when this operation of ICE, when President Trump was elected, and he began the process of looking for ways to make more deportations and increase the deportation numbers, what they did is they went through the list of people who had violated their visas, and they would go to people's homes, knock on their door, folks with tactical gear, ICE agents, and then they found that the person didn't live there anymore. So that wasn't really working. So now what they've done is they just cast a much wider net. And the net that they've cast now, used to be they would say, no, we're only going after the hard criminals. Well, the facts don't support that. By the numbers that they themselves are providing, the vast majority of the people that are being accosted, arrested, mistreated, mishandled, the rights being violated are either U.S. citizens, lawful legal residents, or people who are working on becoming legal residents. And the thing that's really interesting about what Kristi Noem is saying is literally that if you are a person of color in the United States, the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution no longer applies to you, that the Supreme Court basically said that there has to be a reason. There has to be reasonable doubt. But the definition of reasonable doubt, the bar is so low on that it can't simply just be the color of your skin and the accent that you use to communicate to be the determining factor for these IJ agents to violate indiscriminately your rights. And what's happening here is a total breakdown of the American democratic system. The Constitution of this country, the three different branches of government are all being tested. And we're showing under this president the weakness of the American democratic experiment.
Is that how you see it, Matt?
No, quite the contrary. The breakdown of America is letting 30 million people into this country illegally and naively believing that nothing bad is going to happen from it. I do not support what Kristi Noem said. First of all, if you're an American, you don't have to carry an ID. However, if you are an immigrant, legal or illegal, you are required by law to carry an ID. And I got to tell you, I was raised that if you're stopped by a law enforcement officer, follow their direction. If you're out at one of those protests, which is what I believe the secretary is talking about, and you get swept up, if you want to jam the law enforcement up, guess what? They're going to jam you up. But if you're there illegally and you don't have ID, you're here illegally.
Yeah.
So, again, for Americans, of course you have the opportunity. I'm an American citizen. I don't have to show you my ID. But you're going to get jammed up.
But Mark, how do you distinguish between somebody who's here legally or someone who's a legal resident, someone who's a citizen? What's happening with these ICE operations is they are targeting people of color, particularly Latinos, Asians, and other nationalities, and they're discriminating against it because you have to believe in due process as an American.
I absolutely do. But the U.S. Supreme Court has said that race can be a factor, but not the factor.
That's the distinguishing feature. Race right now in these ICE raids, in these operations, which are causing generational PTSD to Latinos in this country and people of other nationalities, their rights continuously are being violated by this attitude, the cruelty with which they're doing this. what happens to the legal system in this country? Do we not believe in a democratic form of government? What happened to the question of reading people their rights
so
and people
we
having
just
rights?
sometimes enforce the laws, or we pick and choose the ones we like. These people are in the country illegally. They broke the law. They don't deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting about this, Alex, is the question of, there is a question of people who come to this country illegally that are breaking the law. The question is, it's not a felony. It's illegal. It's a civil violation. But we're turning it into the biggest crime in the history of mankind and using it as a way to weaponize it and to repress millions of immigrants in this country in the way that's the most unfair thing that I have ever witnessed in my entire life. Well, and by the way, this president and the Republican Party, who has been silent on this, will pay for the actions that they've taken.
That's interesting to see what happens politically, because as you well know, here in California in the 90s, there was something called Prop 187, which was pretty tough on immigrants. It passed, but then sort of awoke an entire generation of Latinos, including you, to get involved into politics. And since then, the Republican Party has not fared very well in this state. And I'm curious what all this does in the midterms, how it impacts things. It's interesting. The governor of this state, Governor Newsom, on his podcast today was Ben Shapiro, one of the top Republican thinkers on this. And they talked about the midterms. Let's show that.
Republicans have no chance in this midterm, right?
I think that they are in for a world of hurt right now in the midterms. I mean, they're the incumbent party. They have a bare majority.
Yeah.
That alone would put them behind the 8 ball.
You agree with that, Matt?
I absolutely do. I mean, and it's not related to immigration. First of all, it's related to the reality of virtually every election in the modern era. The incumbent president's party in power loses an average of 22 seats in the midterm election, just because they're never happy with the way things are going. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, the Republicans, the odds are that they will lose the majority. The question is, will it be a landslide or will it continue to be a tight election? Luckily, going for the Republicans right now, the only thing that's more unpopular than Republicans in Congress are Democrats in Congress.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, look, I think we have agreement on one thing here, which is the Republicans will lose
the House
of Representatives and potentially the Senate.
No way.
But for sure, they're going to lose the House. And the reason why they're going to lose the House, fundamentally, the president can, hide the ball, and the propaganda campaign will continue, to propagate all the lies and the misinformation that they're really good at propagating. You got to give them credit for that. But the reason why the president is going to fail and the Republicans are going to lose the House is because they haven't solved the problems of the economy in this country. They continue to blame Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Well, Trump has been president. Did it for 8 years.
Trump has been president. Trump has been president for a year, and they're continuing to say, "Well, no, the past president." He's being judged. Those midterms, they're judging the sitting president. They're not judging the previous president. The economy is the number one issue. And inflation is a problem. This president has been disastrous on the economy and is handling
2.7% inflation under Donald Trump right now. Yeah. Over 20% under Joe Biden.
By the way, the cost of meat.
Then too is a little different. Well, the cost last question, real quick, because we're out of time, and this is a yes or no. Maria Machado gives President Trump her Nobel Prize today. Does she get the presidency after giving him the prize? Yes or no?
She does not.
Yes, once they have the infrastructure to hold elections.
All right, very interesting. Matt Klink, Fabian Núñez, great to see both of you. Thanks so much for weighing in. Big news for Dodgers.